Hi, I'm Allison Crooker, Director of Event Content for VMware. I'd like to welcome you to this session, Career Growth, A Journey to Zen. Before I introduce our speaker, just wanted to remind you that we are taking questions via the Hoover app. Just type them into the Q&A section. And also, don't forget before you leave the session to rate it so that you'll be entered into a raffle for some great prizes that we have. So with that, let me have the honor of introducing your speaker for this afternoon, Susan Aoki. Susan is the VP GM for Skyline at VMware and has an extensive background in product development, customer success, and digital platforms. She's a dynamic leader who is living proof that the career journey can be filled with Zen. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much, Allison. I am just so excited to spend some time today at WT2. This is my fourth WT2, and it strikes me, in spite of us connected over Zoom, this is such a phenomenal conference, a sisterhood with so many capable women supporting each other. So I want to spend time talking about my own journey in my career, how I've grown my career, as well as through that, taking on a lot of different roles and a lot of adventure, but also, what's framework, what's my learning along the way, and hopefully some of these ideas can help you as you all pursue your career goals, your next adventure. So let me start with why I use the concept of Zen. The modern day definition of Zen is fulfillment, feeling good about yourself, peace. And we all know that a career can really be guided by ambition and ego and power. And a lot of times we focus on the end state. I want to achieve this role. I want to do this job. But what we miss is that it's a journey of experiences along the way. And so I really think that this is a good way to think about how you achieve fulfillment and pursue your career interests. So let me start with a little bit of my background. So I started my career after business school at a company called Varian. They wanted to modernize and they were recruiting a lot of MBAs, but they weren't modernizing on my time scale at 25. So I got frustrated and I joined a startup of 350 employees. And that startup was Cisco. And I stayed there for 20 years. And I realized after I'd been there for 2 decades, I didn't want a one company career. And so I was recruited to NetApp. The role was to build a solutions business. I was then asked to go into customer success. I followed some Cisco execs, some role models into a turnaround situation at Violin. I learned that is harder. Turning around a company that's public is harder said than done. And so after things stabilized, I found my way to VMware. My introduction to VMware was actually at WT2, and I saw what a great company this is. I love the culture, I love the leaders, and I wanted to be part of it. So as I think about my career trajectory, I reflect back to a woman from Intuit spoke at Cisco's first Women's Leadership Conference. She was taking care of some ailing parents while she was trying to manage her career. And she said, you can have it all, just not all at the same time. And that statement has really carried with me through my career. Coming out of business school, I had hair on fire. I was going to drive hard, achieve everything. The way I'd approach classes and getting A's at school, that same sense of achievement and impact carried forward as a new college grad. Later on, I became a working mom and I wanted to be present with my kids. I wanted to be involved in their life. And I realized then I had to make some trade offs. I had to, with my husband, determine what work life balance meant for my family to be successful. And then as the kids got off towards college, I realized it was time that I could just focus on my next adventure. And so as I thought about making these transitions in my career and doing all of this, it really starts with what I want. And so I like the concept of Zen because nobody can tell you what your Zen is. It has to come from within. It's a year in what I call my career midlife crisis. I had achieved at a certain point at Cisco. I had certainly grown my career there, but I felt really stale. And so I would sit down and I would force myself to write what I wanted and what I didn't want. And it was easier to say what I didn't want. I didn't want to be on the road all the time. I had little kids, and it was hard to come up with what I did want. And after a fair amount of self-discovery, I realized I love learning. I love being out of my element. I love being part of a team. I love being with a company that's tied to my own values. And I love building new things. I love trying new things. And so if that is indeed what I love, there's a lot of risk that comes with that. Because in transformation, you have to take on a risk. So when I was early in my career, I was offered a great job opportunity. That role would have really stretched me. It would have taken me into new areas. It would have opened doors for me. And I turned it down because I was scared. I was afraid I was going to fail. I'd always achieved everything I had tried to. And this just really created a huge amount of stress. And in 6 months, I realized that was the dumbest thing I had ever done because I could have learned it and it would have opened up opportunities for me. And I promised myself I would never bypass an opportunity to grow and to develop. You know, I listened to my mom's voice. Growing up, my mother would always say, Susie, what's the worst that can happen? And she always said that to me, and it caused me to analyze and think about what is the worst case scenario. And I realized I have my education. I have my other experiences. I have great mentors. I have my family. And I realize I have a support network that allows me to go and take on new roles, new adventures, try new things. But there will be haters. There will be detractors, unfortunately. There will be people who say she doesn't have enough experience. She's never done this before. Literally, I had someone, she's too nice to get ahead. I want to give respect to the First Lady during World War II, Eleanor Roosevelt. She redefined the role of First Lady. She had her own column. She was a civil activist. She was very involved with refugees. And what she said is, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So you have to just suppress the haters. You have to suppress those that question. You have to suppress your own imposter syndrome so that you can really embrace and tackle all the opportunities that are available to you. So if you want to take on new roles, you have a responsibility to constantly build additional skills. and to nurture and develop your relationships. It's about continuous learning. And with the pace of the industry in tech, it's even more important now than it was 30 years ago. Continuous learning comes in many ways. It comes in education and classes, projects. I volunteer for assignments. And in fact, every significant career transition I made, I can point to an individual assignment that opened up my skills and made me visible to others. I wrote a requirements document when I was an analyst, and the head of product management said, "Wow, she can do that too." I did something to help stabilize a product that was really having some issues of quality, even though I was in product management. And wow, the head of engineering said, "She can do that too." So these are important areas to stretch you. You also have to look at your role models and your sponsors, your mentors and allies. And I believe your boss really matters. Does your boss support you as you tackle a development plan and grow? Does he or she have your back? As you look at other leaders in the organization, are you watching and learning and emulating? I'm very extroverted. I'm very opinionated. I have a perspective that's strong. But what I learned is if I watched other leaders in the organization, they would take advantage of the dialogue before they weigh in. That's something I'm still continuing to work on. You have a cadre of mentors that you trust and admire. Mentors can create a quilt of experiences for you to develop and cultivate. And I truly believe that a mentor is where you have a safe space that you can bare your soul, that you can share your biggest fears in a safe conversation. Today, the world is very cross-functional. Are you cultivating your relationships with your stakeholders? And then are you continuing to stay connected where you have external relationships, maybe a former boss, a former colleague, just to understand what's happening outside of your own web, your own organization. So let me pause. I want to ask you, what are your superpowers? What are the things about your job that you really love? Ponder for a second. So through my career, and certainly during that period of self-discovery, I realized I love roles that combine the customer, the product or technology, and the field. Those ingredients transcend multiple titles, multiple job functions. As an analyst, I learned all about the customer. I was doing forecasting. I learned about the field. And I carried that forward when I was asked to come into product management. There, I learned how to make trade-offs. I learned how to build and define successful products. I was able to carry that forward with my business knowledge, core competence around product development cycles, and I was asked to come into engineering. I started in a small role in engineering, and in fact, the hiring manager asked me, let's see how you can lead an engineering team. After I did that, my boss at the time gave me more responsibilities. He had me report to a peer of mine. He asked me, will you go backwards so you can go forward? That was a test of ego, and I did it. And then he gave me a larger role in engineering. I was running Cisco iOS's service provider roadmap, a team of about 500 people, pretty extensive. I then went on to NetApp because I didn't want a one company career. At first, it was about building a business and solutions. And then I was asked to go lead a team in customer success. My initial reaction was, no, I'm a product person. And then I remembered when I turned down that job early in my career, and I said, wait a moment, maybe I'll learn something. Maybe I'll walk in the customer's shoes. And that knowledge will make me better in the next product role or whatever pursuit I have. So it sounds great, but it didn't always work that well for me. I left NetApp to follow some role models into a turnaround situation at Violin. I thought, boy, I love change. I love transformation. Of course, that's exactly what they want to do. I followed my heart because of these personal relationships, but I didn't really analyze the role. And so what I found is that in a turnaround, it's not for me. There's a lot of negativity that you have to suppress, that you have to believe you can fix. And that was really weighing on my soul. I was carrying that with me everywhere, including in the middle of the night. And so once things stabilized, I then started reflecting again, and I decided, what do I want next? What kind of culture, what kind of role do I want? And then I waited to find the right opportunity, and that's how I joined VMware. So you're coming out of WT2, you're supercharged, you're ready to make it happen, and now it's time to find opportunities. So the first thing you do is know what you love. That's going to be your compass. Then you're going to need to find the opportunity itself. Look inside your own organization. Talk to your stakeholders in adjacent organization. Maybe there's an opportunity there. And if it's not in the company, maybe you feel like you're going to try a new industry or go from tech to a nonprofit or a mission-based. But find those roles and build on your relationships for a couple of reasons. One is your relationships may tell you where there's openings. Your connections may tell you, be a good point of reference for you as you consider roles, as well as maybe that person will give you a recommendation as you make that transition. So I'm very analytical and I'm very structured in my thought process. And so when I make the decision, every time I will go through 3 phases. The first thing I do is I write down almost a key table in accounting. I write down, what am I going to learn and how am I going to contribute? Because I want to hit the ground running. I want to make an impact. I want to learn and grow, but I actually also want to know something to be successful. Then what I do is I write down pros and cons. Why should I take the job? And why shouldn't I take the job? This is where hearing my mom say, what's the worst that can happen is often the con. And then I trust my gut. And this is important as well. You know, I was in a Fortune 100 company. People had spent 25 years, 40 years in their career. I left to join Cisco because I trusted my gut. And I was really, really lucky on that move. So here at WT2, I want to recognize Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who can give a great lesson for us. She is a Supreme Court justice, did so much for women's equality at work. And we all are benefactors for her tireless efforts. She had a lot of health issues and unfortunately passed away last fall. She had created this enormous following, the notorious RBG. And when she was asked what she wanted to be remembered for, she didn't say a title. She didn't say, I want to be remembered for being the Supreme Court Justice. She said, I would like to be remembered as someone who used whatever talent she had to do her work to the very best of her ability. She wanted to be remembered for her work ethic, her capability, and her contribution. So I hope my experiences along the way have been useful as you ponder your next move. But I have a question for you. What is your career then? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
We do. I'm turning my lights. It just went off on. Okay, now you can see me. Yeah, we have a couple of questions and we have about 4 minutes. So one was I found interesting. How do you not compare your own career to someone else's? How do you really feel confident to follow your own journey?
Oh my goodness, what a great question. And I think we grow up and compare. And so I'll tell you when I figure it out, because I certainly still do it. But then what I remember is gratitude. And I remember the choices that I made. And because they were conscious choices, I take comfort in that balance. And so that's how I pursue and how I think about it. I've always had this view that I'm going to be a granny on a rocker on my porch. And I want to reflect back that I had a really exciting career and I had a really fulfilling personal life.
Hmm.
And I made the right combination for me.
Well said. And I think in that answer, you answered a few other questions that came in. One of the other questions I think that's a little different was about what are some of the essential skills that you think need to be developed that one should focus on and build on that career journey?
So at work, I think one of the most powerful attributes is empathy.
Hmm.
And I think cultivating empathy is something that always needs to be nurtured because I think it's what helps create a compelling leader, a leader that other people want to participate and contribute and be part of. The second part is, I think, communication skills, being able to set strategy and communicate your strategy and bring people along, as well as very much so, you have to have domain expertise. And that is where a culture that you're constantly striving to learn and grow and expand your knowledge base is some of the attributes you have to continuously develop.
Well, thank you again, Susan, and lots of chat going on. A lot of people who know you well and were really inspired by your presentation, as well as some new people who are glad to meet you today. So with that, I'm going to thank you again. We are right on time. If you want to rate the session, that would be really appreciated. I think Susan would like the feedback, and
Please.
you'll also get entered into a raffle. So thank you again, Susan, and thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you, everyone.